Hey y'all, what's up? So today's name that we are going to be discussing is El Shaddai. And the scripture that we have tied to today's text is Job chapter 6, verse 4. So El Shaddai is a name that describes God's unlimited grace, his endless mercies, and his bountiful giving. El Shaddai means Almighty, the all-powerful, omnipotent God. So I chose to use a scripture from the book of Job because out of all of the books in the Bible, the book of Job uses the word Almighty the most. This book shows us that even God's people will suffer no matter what. However, the righteous will be blessed even greater if they continue on in righteousness. So now we know that Job had suffered a great ordeal of pain and loss from losing all of his children, his livestock, his animals, and servants all in one day. Not over a year span or so, but all in one day. However, during this horrific time, Job showed a deep dependence on God to meet all of his need and continued to reverence him as the Almighty. He refused to curse God, which was one of the things that the enemy was trying to get him to do. And so through Job's affliction, he found that his friends, his homies, his bros was no help. They had nothing to offer. They were abusive, they were condemning, and then they undermined his character, indicating that his present suffering had everything to do with him being foolish, and then him expressing to God his feelings of grief and anger. And know that his friends offered general truth, but their reasoning for Job's sufferings were completely wrong. And so, in one season or another, we have all been in Job's shoes. However, just like Job did, we have to know that God is not offended by you expressing your anger or your grief that your present or past situation has caused. That's okay. It's really okay. Just don't curse him while you're expressing your feelings. And it's when we go through that the enemy is trying to get us to curse God. And even Job, we see that he asked God. He's like, dude, why have you forsaken me? Like, why are you allowing all of this pain to come over me? And God responded like, son, like, listen, even if I told you, even if I gave you the answer to your question, it still wouldn't ease the pain. You still would try to rationalize to see really, like, come on, bro, like, why? And so God is saying, hey, just trust my character. And that is what he is saying to you in your season of pain, in your season of grief. You may not understand why, and you may never really understand why, but trust God's character. Trust that he will never leave you nor forsake you. Trust that he has your best interest at heart. Trust his righteousness. Trust that the righteous will never be forsaken or seen begging for bread. Trust in God, just as Job did, and he chose to see God, to seek God, even in the midst of his anger and in the midst of his sorrows, in the midst of his pain. The scripture says that the arrows of the Almighty are enemy, indicating that God's hands was visible in his suffering. After all that Job went through, God restored Job's health, and he provided him with twice as much property as before. He gave him new children, and he had an extremely long life. And he was blessed even greater because he continued on in righteousness. And so we call him El Shaddai, the Almighty, Because even in the midst of grief, the midst of pain, the midst of loss, he is still God. He is still good. And know that he is still with you. Know that he has not forgotten about you. He knows exactly where you are. God cares for you, and he will never stop caring. And know that even when you go through, in the end, oh, he gonna give you double for your trouble. So today, be bold, be courageous, be unapologetically blessed.